for Game 2 tonight. And what's yours?
We'll keep moving.
He doesn't even talk about his first name. His middle name is Chris.
Game 1 could have easily gone to Toronto. Raptors were leading by 7 entering the fourth quarter, but the Bucks outscored them 32-17 the rest of the way to secure the win for Milwaukee. Raptors will try again to steal home court advantage tonight. All right, Nick, let's break it down. What's the key to this one?
Can the Raptors steal 10 minutes of rest for Kawhi Leonard and survive? Because I don't think you can ask Kawhi after a 7-game series, after averaging 40 minutes a game in the first series, after playing night after, with only not back-to-back nights, pardon me, but they have one day in between games, no extra rest, after playing 43 minutes in Game 1 to do that again. And what we saw in Game 1 was that when he goes to the bench, they fall apart, and they don't, because of that, they're hesitant to let him go to the bench. So that's the first thing. Can you get him legitimate rest in the first 3 quarters so he is ready to go the majority, if not all of the fourth quarter, without having already played 32, 33 minutes going into the fourth quarter? And then the other big X factor for me is, what utility does Marc Gasol have in this series? They traded away Jonas Valanciunas, C.J. Miles, and DeLon Wright for Marc Gasol. Why? Because Marc Gasol in his career has given Joel Embiid fits. They were trying to figure out how they would be able to counteract the big man from Philly. And even though they won that series, and even though Joel Embiid had a big impact on that series, offensively, he was really stifled except for one game. Marc Gasol did his job against Embiid. This is a different monster in Milwaukee because their big man is about as different from Embiid as you can get. He wants to stay out by the three-point line. He wants to draw you away from the basket. And with the lack of depth, if Gasol doesn't have a major role, now you're asking Ibaka to play even more minutes than he's already playing, and you're in, to me, real trouble. So can they find rest for Kawhi Leonard? Can Marc Gasol be a positive in this series when it's a really tough matchup for him? Those, to me, are the 2 keys, not just for this game, but for this series moving forward.
I think them thinking that they played well enough in game number 1, thinking if they played that well in game number 2 that they would win. Because a lot of teams will look at, wow, man, we were there. We could have won this game. Let's play like that in game number 2. No, because Milwaukee will play better. As far as Marc Gasol is concerned, I think he's going to be okay because you have to be able to give a team something. You're not going to be good defensively where you can just take away everything. You have to be able to give them something. And Lopez shooting a 3-pointer, they're going to have to be able to live and die with that compared to having Giannis into the paint. So I expect Gasol to continue. Because I don't want Giannis in the paint, because that's more of a problem than Lopez being able to hit the threes. And if he hits those threes, they're going to win the world championship. Not only win this series, right? So I'm going to allow him to be able to do that. Kawhi Leonard, Kawhi is going to have to be able to get rest when he's on the court. I don't know if he's going to be able to come off the court, Nick. We see our best players. How can they preserve themselves? Because Kawhi, it wasn't the fourth quarter got him exhausted. It was those 15 points he had, in the third quarter.
And playing the entire third
to be able to keep them in the game when Milwaukee was trying to come back into this game. So don't get too cavalier with, oh, man, we can duplicate game number 1. Can Kyle Lowry come back and be the second or best player? Because I believe Siakam reemerges and is that second scorer behind Kawhi in game number 2.
Are we just past now waiting for Toronto's bench to step up and their supporting cast besides Kyle Lowry to really perform the way this team did and needed? I mean, isn't that really what Kawhi Leonard needs, what he got from them in the regular season?
Well, we've got to recognize, when I mentioned the Marc Gasol trade, 2 of those names were key bench players, C.J. Miles, DeLon Wright. They're not on the team anymore. OG, this is the toughest type of reason to miss a guy. It's not even because of an on-court injury. The guy had an appendectomy, and he has not been able to play. Now you're down 3 key bench players. Your 4th key bench player is Fred VanVleet, who's been playing but in name only. He's 4 of 28. 4 of 28. That'd be a bad batting average, much less shooting percentage over the last 2 series. They might have to dust off Jeremy Lin. They might they might have to try to get the first guard off the bench, someone other than VanVleet, because they can't play a 6-man team. You can't be a 6-man team against the Bucks, who have 8 guys who have been starters on playoff teams. 8 guys that have not been role players. starters on playoff teams. So, yeah, I mean, if the Raptors don't get more impact off their bench, I don't believe their starting lineup has enough offensive firepower, because you mentioned Siakam. Going to be very difficult for Siakam to be an efficient scorer in this series with what they're asking him to do defensively. Siakam's biggest job in this series is on the defensive end.
It's called the NBA, man. Well, it's called the NBA. Like, at the biggest stages, you're going to face higher level of competition, and you can't take one end of the court off. If you're trying to get to the finals, this is the type of battle that you would want. For Siakam to be the type of player, and for Giannis, if he's going to be the best player in the world, he should be able to face people like Siakam. It's those that can do both. That's what makes the postseason special. That's how you can build your resume in the postseason.
And that's also one of the reasons why, I mean, we're talking about what the Raptors need to do. It's one of the reasons why I not only think the Bucks are going to win this series, I wouldn't be surprised if they win it in 5 games. I don't think Siakam is Siakam's going to win most improved player of the league this year, him or D'Angelo Russell. He's been an excellent story. But in year 3, he is not ready for what they need from him in this series. Kyle Lowry was extraordinary in game 1. Do we think he's going to be able to duplicate that? I'm talking about bringing Jeremy Lin off the bench as a possible spark. I know it's the NBA playoffs, and because it's the NBA playoffs, I don't think the Raptors have enough answers to the questions the Bucks are going to demand of them.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, do the Warriors have a chance to three-peat if KD does not return? Talk about that next on First Things First.